day. And just digress slightly, some of the things that I've been reading about the Leaving Cert exams over the last 2 weeks are a bit worrying in terms of where the English paper that had to be, or the backup paper had 3 of the same 4 putts to run the first paper. Yet there's almost this view that because it was their turn to come up. And I read today, I think there was a lot of criticism of one of the papers yesterday because the question that was on it was the exact same as the question that was on it last year, and therefore it wasn't taught in schools because they didn't think it could come up again. And I thought you're teaching people not to pass exams, but teaching them, give them an education. And I think there needs to be a proper focus on learning rather than just having a qualification.
There's a question over here.
At risk of simply reiterating the same point, I think in Ireland we have a kind of learn by rote system, and I think we need to offer a more practical system. I see through learning the CFA, going through the books, you're looking at, we'll say, Burger King versus McDonald's. As I think from in college, we were more looking at X and Y, but I think there needs to be a more practical element, especially perhaps at university level, so that people are qualifying with the practical skills. Google recently had a difficulty where they were looking for 200 jobs in Europe, or wrong, in Ireland, and they could only come up with a handful of graduates, despite everyone was coming out of UCD with a 2-1 in computer science or whatever. So just that practical way of testing people, I think, is perhaps being misstated upon.
Susan Hayes from INTV Stock Market Training. As somebody who has just did the level 1 exam last Saturday and graduated last year from a 3rd level degree, there is an immense difference between studying for a college degree and the CFA. What you described, Jerry, as learning essentially and hoping that what came up last year may or may not come up next year, that's exactly what goes on at 3rd level. And I think the quality of graduates that come out relative to the quality of people who maybe go ahead and do a professional exam at the CFA, there really is no comparison whatsoever. I think that the professional exam like the CFA would be far superior to something like a 3rd level degree, as literally somebody who's just come through the system. Thank you.
Actually, just make the point that there's no choice on the CFA paper, so it's literally that's the work and I am up, and it makes it certainly sharpens your mind when you're sitting an exam, and literally everything that you possibly can come up could come up.
David, can I come back to you as the person who asked the question?
Thanks, Chairman. Unambiguously, I would say that qualifications and the CFA in particular for investment people are a help, are a benefit. I think the argument, and some of the people on the panel refer to it, there's a questioning about what's happened in the last few years, the way models didn't perform, the way maybe the brightest and the best got things wrong. But I think even to counter that, to look in Ireland at the way the rush into property, issues like risk, liquidity, diversification, basics for CFAs were ignored in the process of that. I think the one message I would have is that the CFA is really only a beginning in a process. I think there's a lot will change. A lot of the thinking around markets will have to change around what's happened in the last few years. And I think people with an educational background, with a CFA, will be best able to engage in that and to be involved in that.
Thanks for that, Chairman. And thanks for your contribution to education, which has been exemplary over the many years that I've known you in this city. We're nearly at the end. Got one more question. I think Maurice Wims has a question, and we want to deal with this one fairly quickly.
Okay, I've got the really hard question to last. On Sunday, we saw 2 very impressive business ladies on the final of The Apprentice. And I'd be interested to know if the panel feels we have anything to learn from Yasmina, I hope I remember the name right, Kate and Alan Sugar.
Jerry? It's great. For the first time tonight, I feel I'm on completely solid ground with this one. Personally, I thought Deborah should have been in the final ahead of both of them. I think what we probably learned from it is probably more learned from Alan Sugar, is that flair and personality count for an awful lot. And I think that's the basis on which he made his choice, where he had a choice between 2 people who were very solid, but I think one didn't display enough but enough personality or flair. And I was heartened to see that can count for something.
Well, the key thing with regard to the apprentice is that all of them, including Al Sugar, of course, are very successful people or will be in the future. And I've often asked myself the question, what are the key ingredients to success? First of all is ability. You need to have some sort of natural ability, whatever it is, whether it's art or tree surgery or quantitative finance, whatever. The second ingredient is opportunity. If you're in a place where there are no opportunities, somewhere in Africa or whatever, certain places where with all the ability in the world there's no hope for succeeding in whatever your life ambition is. And that brings me to the third, ambition. Without ambition, and this is something the two candidates, as well as Alan Sugar, of course, as well, have demonstrated again and again, is they are so ambitious. I think if you have those three ingredients, ability, ambition, and opportunity, you are definitely going to succeed in whatever you do.
Kevin? I didn't see much of the series, and I missed the final bit, but I thought intuition was a word that was used a lot throughout the series, and if you have it, be careful because you're going to get fired. And I think that's a common thing, so that's really all I have to offer, unfortunately.
Charlie, any quotes?
No quotes. No quotes. I think that I didn't look at every single episode, but I think Yasmina in particular showed the ability to adapt to ever-changing situations from week to week. Also showed in terms of enthusiasm and also a certain humility about her in that she wasn't there talking up her book all the time, and showed that in terms of her teams were willing to work for her. In terms of the other girl, Kate, I think it says something for American dentistry for anybody who looked at it.
There was a quote. Rasa, last word to you.
I don't know how you compete with this. I think Charlie should have ended, but yeah, I think I missed it unfortunately as well. I think the only thing I'd say is there's obviously a lot of downbeat stuff has gone on in this country for the last 6 months. But funnily enough, when you talk to people and when you're abroad and meeting clients, it tends to be the case that people do have a lot of faith in the Irish work ethic. And if we can take anything from the drive of the two ladies who were in competing for the final spot, I think if we can take that drive on ourselves, I think we'll have a much better chance of getting out of our current mess.
Last word, Morris.
I have to confess that I didn't watch it myself. I was watching something. I was watching something far more important to the future of the country, the highlights of the Dublin Meath match. But I guess a couple of the points mentioned there. The one about personality, I think, is very important. And even from my own personal experience, that's a tremendous strength that the Irish have. In a former existence, I would have travelled a fair bit to Europe, and you can see the Irish really thrive. When they're on the international stage, they seem to get on well with everybody, and the interpersonal skills. And it's great to see a program like The Apprentice almost reaffirming that that's actually a very it's not just a nice to have, it's a very critical value. So I think that's a very positive thing. And it was mentioned earlier about the back office, front office. That positions us well to avail of that switch if we feel that that's something we have to do.
Well, I want to draw our proceedings to a conclusion, and I want to thank everybody here in the room, particularly yourselves as a participant audience, and for turning up, whether you contributed or not. The discussion I think we had was made possible by the planning and diligent work of particularly Ronan McCabe and Siobhan Funge, and I'd very much like to thank them for the effort they put in. I'd also pay tribute to Joe Kavanagh, the chairman of the CFAIreland, whose tireless work in all of these things and his imagination in pushing them forward has served us very well again, I think, tonight. And thanks again to our cameraman and 3 camera people for the job they did. And I want to thank again the panellists for very lively and informed and very interesting contributions to Rossa, Kevin, Charlie, Jerry and Marco. Well done to you all.